Welcome back. Let's have a show of hands. Are the 2050 net neutrality target, carbon neutrality targets, emissions neutrality targets realistic? Do you think they can be achievable in a way that doesn't impact demand? Hands up, hands down. Are these targets achievable? Yes or no?
Yes.
One yes, there's a yes there, there's a yes there. There's a no. I think Tim is firmly on the no. Güliz, I think is kind of, well, maybe.
I said yeah.
Okay. How do we therefore communicate? I want to kind of start with where we finished with Willie. How does the industry communicate that this is going to be a huge challenge? Because at the moment there seems to be this idea that this is going to be achieved with relative ease, and that targets that are being set are achievable and represent a realistic assessment of the situation. Tim, let me try and get your take on that first of all. How do we reset the conversation with government, with passengers, with the public, to just convey the enormity of the mountain that needs to be climbed? How do we do that?
Well, first of all, it's going to be very hard. For anybody to inject a reasonableness test into all of this faces the wrath of multiple entities out there. So it's what I call a high-risk situation. But somebody or an entity needs to champion the messaging. And that deals with the plethora of entities involved, whether it be government, NGOs, the various groups that are environmentally zealots in their own right, etc. Somehow we've got to say to them, listen, we're trying really hard and the evidence is there. Look at the evidence of the way the global economy, as I said earlier, has moved in the last 20 years in terms of recognition of what needs to be done. When you talk about aircraft being powered by eSAF, say hydrogen, even the manufacturers, the top leaders in aerospace are saying to get an aircraft flying by the mid-30s to late 30s is going to be really hard. Is it achievable? Yes, but there have got to be not just step changes, these are major changes in the way we go about propulsion. If you're talking about aircraft that are larger than, say, a single-aisle 320 or 737, then I would say it's going to be a lot further out than that, simply because of the simple rules of physics. So, you know, in the end, if you want the airline industry, do you want the airline industry to exist? Or do you want us to live in caves?
How do we get to a point where we all understand the nature and the extremity, how extreme the challenge is, but can work together to actually provide practical solutions that make it realistic that aviation has a future where things like that don't happen?
No, I think that, as I said before, we have a real problem and we need to decarbonize aviation. The problem is that we don't have now the way to do it. That's the reason I think we need ambition and we need to put targets for 2050. It's true what Tim is saying. We don't have the technology now. The new aircraft that we are bringing to our companies, they can reduce up to 40%. Hydrogen maybe is going to be a solution for the narrow body. For the wide body, it's going to be very difficult. Carbon capture is starting. SAF, we don't have. eSAF is the technology that maybe is more scalable, but we need to develop. So the reality is we have ambitious objectives, but we don't have the way to comply with this now. But I think that the only way to do that is to work together. I always put the examples of the COVID vaccine. So when the world had a real problem and everybody tried to do something to solve the problem, in 1 year we had several vaccines to try to fix the situation because we work together. So the problem now is that everybody is trying to, in some way, to defend the different areas. So, for example, mandate, that Willie said before. It doesn't make any sense to put a mandate when you cannot buy something. So mandate is only a way to have a headline and to say I'm doing something, but in reality you are not doing anything because I cannot buy what is not in the market. So what we have to do is to produce SAF. We need to incentivize SAF production. Next year, for example, in International Airlines Group, we are importing SAF from US. That doesn't make any sense.
Crazy.
We need to produce SAF in Europe, we need to produce SAF in UK, and I think that's the challenge.
Willie, when does the phony war come to an end then? Because it feels like we're in a phony war at the moment.
No, I don't think so, Guy. Because I don't think you will meet an airline CEO who isn't prepared to engage on this subject and isn't prepared to identify the challenges that we face. So I think we're being realistic about the challenge. I think we've owned up to the problem. And this isn't just an aviation problem. This is a global problem, and it's impacting on every industry. What we recognize is our industry is harder to decarbonize than most others.
Gravity works against you.
But we do have solutions. We know that sustainable aviation fuel is possible. We know that it will address the problem. What we need now is...
It's really expensive, though.
No, of course it's expensive, but it's expensive because it's being delivered in such tiny volumes. It's like anything. Once you get scale into this, you will see some of the costs reduced. Now, I personally believe SAF will always be priced at a premium to kerosene, but equally I believe that the industry is ready to embrace that. So, the industry recognizes the problem, the industry is doing everything it can to address it, and we will achieve the target, because we will have to achieve the target. There isn't an option here. We cannot say, we're going to do our best, but we're not going to get there. People will not accept that. So the pressure will be on us to ensure that we deliver. And personally, looking at everything we've faced up to in the past, I believe that this industry is capable of addressing this challenge.
Güliz, you've got lots of new aircraft coming down, more fuel efficient, but your network is expanding. Do you think your airline will be bigger or smaller in a world where aviation fuel is eSAF and it's expensive? And how big a limiting factor do you think this is going to be on this industry's growth? Are we at peak travel right now because of the expense of what is coming down the pike towards this? It is going to be so expensive to decarbonize this industry. Is there going to be a demand impact as a result of that?
Yeah, that depends on, as you have said, how expensive it will stay. I mean, we're looking for now, like about 20, 25 years later. So within this time period, which we have in front of us, I believe the aviation sector also, it's a collaborative approach. There should be a collaborative process and an approach, as Willie said. We have to find the economics behind it. So as long as the production is there, some incentives there, I believe this industry will find a way to adapt itself, and then the growth will be there. How? Because then, for us, for example, we know well how to manage our costs, how to have those very relentless focus on our costs. That may, at the end, as if the SAF is more expensive than today, then of course, that will have an impact on the fares and prices and doing this business. But mobility will also be there. We're talking about 25 years later, the population is increasing, the technology is increasing. If there is no aviation, and how will this mobility continue? There is no replacement over it. So I believe we'll find the ways. We have a time plan, for example, for Pegasus. We have prepared the time plan to reach net zero. We know how much to consume in terms of SAF to reach net zero. It is not an easy way to go, but we have to find the means and the cooperation, collaboration, incentives, to reach that target. And it should not be on the airline's shoulder only.
Luis, you're down at the end. You put your hand up at the beginning. You think these targets are achievable. Do you think that we understand how difficult they are going to be? When do you think the industry should start saying this is going to be really hard? When do you think, I was talking to Willie a moment ago, governments and the airline industry and passengers to a certain degree are still talking past each other. Targets are being set, but there isn't the production. The airlines are saying it's achievable, but they know that the production isn't there. We need to be realistic about this. How at TAP are you thinking about a realistic journey that is going to take you there? How much time is being consumed at the moment within the organization about how you're going to make it?
The reason why I am absolutely clear on that we will make it as an industry is because of a belief in human ingenuity.
Right.
If I remember right my history lessons, there were 7 years between President Kennedy made the speech on the moon and getting there.
Yeah. We go because it's hard.
7 years ahead, and that was 50 years ago. If you ask me how technically we will do it.
But when does that moment come? When does that moment of, we go not because it's easy, we go because it's hard? When do we have that frank conversation? This is going to be hard, folks.
I think we're having it. And one of the reasons why we engage, you asked in the beginning, how do we engage with this speech, with the community? By standing here and openly talking about it. We have a chance.
Yep.
We're not hiding away from anything. We'll tackle the challenge. Let us do the work and we'll tackle the challenge. And it will cost a lot in terms of money, time, energy, but we will make it. I'm very clear. And we're not hiding away from it.
How do we need a pricing mechanism? Do we need, the European Union has a price of carbon. How do we need a global vehicle to achieve balance? Are European airlines going to be suffering more than US airlines? The US airlines have the IRA. There's all kinds of carrots and sticks that can be used in this process. Asian airlines, Middle Eastern airlines, everybody's facing this challenge slightly differently. Do you think the aviation industry should tackle this regionally, globally, at a company-specific level, at a group level? Where do you think the best place to deal with this challenge is?
At all levels.
Right.
What I'm most afraid of is not our commitment to do it, is politicians that in 5 or 10 years, when they think we won't achieve it, they will start playing the easy game, which is to impose taxes on the people who has no control over producing the whole thing. So I think we should have a panel here of political representatives from all governments and having this fair discussion. We're not hiding away from it. We want to help. IATA is here, is a global entity that is willing to help, and Willie said that very clearly. What is the mechanism that we're going to have to use?
Yep.
We don't know, but we are open to discussing. We're not hiding away from the whole thing.
What do you think the mechanism is?
So, well, the framework exists. So if you look in the current environment, we have CORSIA, which recognizes that things will move at a different pace. So not everybody's going to move at the same pace.
Yep.
And I don't think we should expect every country, every airline, every region to move at the same pace. Some will move at a faster pace, which is to be welcomed. Others will take time to catch up. But collectively, we will get there. So, you know, Luis has a commitment from his group, 10% SAF by 2030. Now, to get to that, as he said, he's going to be importing SAF from the US, which is ridiculous. You know, he shouldn't have to physically import the fuel.
How much does that undermine the effort? If you have to import it from the US, how much does that undermine the advantage gained from using SAF?
But it does undermine it because you've got a greater carbon footprint by having to transport the fuel. And this is why we've argued that a global accounting system, book and claim, that doesn't matter where you buy it, you don't physically have to use it. It's exactly the way it is today. An airline buys fuel that gets delivered into a holding tank in the airport. You don't take physical possession of the actual fuel you bought. You take physical possession of the fuel that the airport delivers to you. So, the idea that we have to physically use the SAF rather than get credit for purchasing the SAF. These are simple measures that can make a big difference to the pace at which this industry decarbonizes. And that's why I said a critical factor in this is getting the government and global framework in place. So that we don't end up having to increase the carbon footprint by transporting it from one place to the other. Use the fuel where the fuel is produced. Does it matter who uses it? It doesn't. What matters is who's paying for it, because it's the person that's paying for it is ensuring that the product is produced and delivered.
Luis, do you think the infrastructure exists? Is the infrastructure going to exist? I'm trying to understand where the bottlenecks are ultimately going to come in this journey. We've identified the fact that production is going to be one of them, but storage and transport and is Heathrow going to be ready? Are those conversations starting now? When you sit down with Heathrow, kind of what do they tell you about their plans? What does JFK tell you? What do the airports that you talk to tell you about the infrastructure and how that needs to adapt as well?
No, I think it's not prepared for that. And the problem is that everybody, what they don't want is to have the ball in their hands. So at the end, we are not working together to solve the issue. So again, the governments, I am sure they want to fix the problem as we want to fix the problem. But they consider that if they put the ball in the hands of the airlines, it's okay. We say, okay, mandate, and you need to buy the SAF that you don't have in the market. So it's not the same, for example, with electric cars. With electric cars, you have an option. You can buy an electric car. In our case, we don't have any alternative today. So the only alternative we have is to bring new aircraft. We have a big investment, all of us, in new aircraft. In our case, for example, 4 billion euros this year in new aircraft, because it's the latest technology that we can have. And we are investing more than $800 million in SAF, but we only have 25% of the SAF that we need to comply with our commitment. So I think the problem is that we need to work together, but we need to work together with the objective to fix the problem, not with the objective not to be in the newspapers in some way.
Güliz, can you be a low-cost airline and burn SAF?
Yes, why not?
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, that's also always the issue of managing your costs depending on what the market is, how the market conditions are, what the others are doing, how is your competition, where is what the customer wants and needs. So we are living on the same planet. We're doing the aviation business. We are the ones sitting at these roles running the airline. The customers are the ones also living in this planet and also tries who would like to save the planet, right, for the future generations. So it's a kind of like something that airlines will do and the customers will face. It's not the case. It's a global issue. All of us should keep it and try to solve it. So probably the market dynamics will change and low cost will also be possible there. But I just adding one comment to Luis, I think on the infrastructure side, it is also not there like SAF. I mean, airlines are more passionate, are having more plans in front of them, but the airports, that's why we're saying at the governmental level this should be coordinated and it should not be a regional, it cannot be a regional issue. I mean, IATA, ICAO, with bringing the governments to the table, we should be there ready also in terms of infrastructural issues, which is not there and which is not talked anymore.
Do you think your new airport, Luis, is going to be built for SAF? You talked about the fact you need a new airport. I'm wondering why you need a new airport. And presumably one of the advantages of a new airport at this point in time is that you can put all this new infrastructure in. We were hearing from Riyadh a little bit earlier on about a blank piece of paper. How important do you think, how big an advantage would a new airport built for the SAF environment be to you? How big a kind of competitive advantage do you think that would potentially give TAP, Lisbon, Portugal, wherever you ultimately end up?
I don't look at it as an advantage. It's going to be there for every airline that flies into that airport.
Yep.
If the airport doesn't have that infrastructure, then let's scrap the whole thing and start again.
Yeah.
To start with. I mean, using SAF or using whatever technology, it should be as common as if you're safe, you fly. If you're not safe, you don't fly.
Yep.
So this is not a question about being more or better than the other airline because we use more SAF. It's something that we have to do no matter what, period. Consumers will decide then what they want to do.
Yep.
But I don't see any airlines advertising, we use more SAF than the next guy, fly with us. I don't
That's
think
not going to work.
That should not be the name of the game.
But the beauty of SAF is that you actually don't need much change in infrastructure. Because at the moment, SAF is a drop-in fuel.
Yep.
So it's a blend 50-50. I think if we get to a situation where there are aircraft types that can use 100% SAF and some that can only use 50%, then you might get into an infrastructure debate with the airports.
Yep.
But the beauty of SAF is that airport infrastructure doesn't really need to change. Hydrogen is a bigger issue. There's major infrastructure
do you think we should be thinking about our airports?
Not at this stage, because I don't think there's anybody in this stage that would be committing to using hydrogen in the short to medium term. I think
sounds like SAF is going to be a big enough challenge.
Yeah, so I think hydrogen is something beyond 2050, certainly beyond 2040.
We've got a few minutes left, so I want to get everybody the opportunity to ask some questions as well. Let's talk about AI for a minute. A show of hands again. How much time have you all got to grips with the impact you think AI is going to have? Has the AI challenge seems to have come? It's been a pot that's been boiling for a while, and now seems to have come to the boil. The technology looks like it's going to be usable, and it looks like it's going to be achievable at a relatively low cost. How does aviation use AI to answer some of the challenges that it needs to answer right now? Tim, you're a big airline, you're a credible airline. You talk about the fact that you've got lots of people involved in the AI process. Where do you think over the next 5 years AI is going to have the biggest impact on your airline?
Well, I think I said earlier, we've been using AI for 10 years within the business. The new AI, if you can call it that, is a result of enormously improved, powerful computing power, which allows us to do a lot more things. And now the questions have been asked about, by the great and the good, as to how do we deal with AI, the moral of it, whatever it may be. The way I look at it is that the airline industry, from a very early age, embraced what was the predecessor of digital technology, our reservation systems, our back-of-house systems. It was a leader in that in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So to be able to look at AI and the power that it'll bring us with regard to the B2C markets and how we can be better placed to look at the way our consumers respond and react is definitely a huge advantage, but also in the B2B markets. And the B2B market, the B2B segments are probably the low-hanging fruit with less risk. In other words, if you've got OEMs, whatever entity you're dealing with, who are embracing AI in their own systems, and you are doing the same with regard, say, your engineering or your information technology or wherever it may be, back of house, you bring enormous efficiencies into how you go about predicting when components are going to fail, engine management, whatever. If GE, Rolls-Royce, Pratt are all doing the same, then look at what they're doing, lock into them, and get the power of that. At the same time, in parallel to that, you're looking at this rather multi-dimensional B2C market. And a lot of the people here today, a lot of the companies here today are looking and offering services with regard to that. So you've got the big players like Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, all in offering a suite of products to deal with the way their platform will give you AI ability. And those are coming down the track thick and fast. We're in the early stages of this. There's a degree of concern, but for me, what I say to the businesses, embrace it, get on with it, use it as best you can. We will do what we need to do with the construct of the genomes and everything else, which we've been doing for a long time. So we now have a fair idea of what we're doing anyway. We have a very large, competent, high-powered, intellectually powered enterprise analytics group who've been with us for 10 years now. They're already doing this. This enhances their strength, enhances their ability to do a lot more construction with regard to where it is, what we're doing, how we're doing it. So just get on with it. I mean, you know, I always use the analogy that, you know, when electricity came along and people turned the light on, they thought, oh, what's this strange thing with all these rays? And
get used to it pretty quickly.
And suddenly, look what happened. AI is the same. Where does it end? When does the machine outthink us? What is the future in that? If we worry about that now and not get on with the advantages it brings to us, then we're going to be doing ourselves no favors in the long run. Just get on with it. Deal with what comes down the track. We've always done that. We adapt to everything. We manage that.
Yep. Luis, do you have to, how big a competitive advantage relative IAG, Lufthansa, Air France, KLM, US groups, Tim, if you can get AI right, how big a competitive advantage do you think that's going to be?
I think it's going to be an advantage for the people, the first movers in some way, because after
so you just got to get on with it.
After that, the rest of the people, they will follow. But big groups like us, we have the possibility to invest in this artificial intelligence. And I think artificial intelligence, we were talking before about the uncertainty of the revenues in the future. We don't see any weakness, but I think we need to be more efficient. And artificial intelligence, in a moment where inflation is very high, costs are going up, the best way to reduce the unit cost is to increase efficiency, increase productivity, and artificial intelligence is something that can help the operations, can help utilization of the aircraft, also can help the way we manage the customer. So I think it's a big opportunity. We are putting
get on with it
in the group.
Yeah. Okay, I've got 6-7 minutes left. There are some mics floating around, I understand. I hope there are. Got a captive audience here. Well, a captive set of CEOs, I should probably say. You're the captive audience. Who would like to ask them a question? Put your hand up. If I can find you, please say who you are and what your question is. Who's got a question? Gentleman down here at the front is the only one brave enough to put his hand up. Let's get him a mic.
Good morning, guys. Firstly, thank you so much for the panel.
Sorry, just say who you are.
My name is Kathan. Kathan Dadella. I'm the head of training at UK Flight Training. So my question is to everybody. I know Sir Tim Clark touched upon it a little bit. Now, do you think there will be a time, now AI is improving so much, do you think there will be a point where AI has improved so much, so rather than doing good for the airlines, it's actually harming the airlines? Do you think there will be a point that it will come, to it, that instead of, passengers are using AI so much that it's harming the airline's profitability?
Okay.
I don't think so. And again, let's look at past experience. I can remember a debate, probably it's more than 20, maybe 30 years ago, where there was a suggestion that the internet was going to lead to the end of the airline industry. That we wouldn't need to travel anymore. We wouldn't need to have meetings face to face. And look what has happened. I think the internet has been one of the greatest facilitators to the development of the airline industry. So, technology always has challenges and opportunities. At the moment, I see far more opportunities in AI than I do challenges. There are challenges there, but I see far more opportunities for our industry than I do see challenges.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's also, just to add what Willie has said, I mean, if you think about 20 years back, like when we had all those paper tickets, all those operational processes on the airline sector, and which at that time we were thinking that this should be done in this way. There cannot be any other way that we can handle these processes. And look now how efficiency is brought into our processes with the help of technology, AI, machine learning. Now, we don't talk about AI anymore. We're talking about generative AI now, where we can use, how we can use, we don't know now. I mean, there are some use cases which also within the company we know, but we want to explore more. And I'm sure, I believe, yes, challenges will be there, of course, but our life is full of challenges. So this will definitely bring efficiency, because airline business is in itself a big pile of optimization and planning. And as long as you're efficient, you're there. So I totally
sounds pretty positive.
agree, yeah.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left. Who else would like a question?
Hello. Hello, guys. Lee Hayhurst from Aviation Business News. Given what we've just seen a moment ago on stage, I wonder what the guys would, if you had the opportunity to sit down and have a reasonable conversation, assuming they were up for a reasonable conversation, what would be the key point you would like to get across to our protester friends? And do you worry that what they represent is a generational shift away from aviation because there's a mood swing against it?
I suspect Willie would like to answer that question.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is I don't think it's a generational issue, because I think everybody's concerned about the environment. I don't think it's something unique to younger people or people in certain parts of the world. I think everybody is. But you know, I think as an industry, I think we're very willing to engage with anybody. You know, this is not just an airline industry. You've heard us talk about this before. We're responsible for 2.5% of man-made CO2, and yes, we have non-CO2 impact as well. The science around that is not as mature. You know, we're open to debate this, but the idea that if you stopped aviation tomorrow, if you stopped all aviation tomorrow, there would still be a debate around climate change, and there would still be a debate around what we as a world needs to do to address it. So aviation is part of the problem, and aviation will be part of the solution. And as industry leaders, we're all determined to play our part to ensure that we address this issue going forward.
Okay, I've got 1 minute left. Anybody want further question? I've got one hand up there. Does that hand have a mic? Sorry, let me. Oh no, I will definitely. I think we need to get some balance in here. Sorry, you were blocked by the podium. Can I just, sorry, just hold on a sec.
We have a question.
Okay, I can run it a bit longer.
Thanks a lot for an interesting discussion. We have a very big challenge in our industry that people don't like to change in general, and our industry doesn't like to change at all. There are actually solutions out there that can predict disruptions in airspace closures, the company I work for. But the challenge we're experiencing is that the middle management in the airlines are not willing to change. They're not willing to adopt these new technologies. So as a top management, what can you do to encourage this change from happening?
Excellent question. Who would like, Luis, I feel you at the end haven't had a chance to. How would you encourage your middle management to be more open-minded?
If they're not part of the solution, they're part of the problem.
Right.
And you know what happens to problems? We deal with them. I think everybody now, I'm sure in all our airlines, want to be part of the problem because they love the industry they're working on, they want to contribute, and you know, that's not, the middle management issue is not about airlines, it's about every industry in the world. And I think we're dealing with ours pretty well. I don't have a concern there.
Okay, they seem unconcerned.
Can I just say, very often the reverse is true.
So it's senior management is where the foot dragging takes place.
The middle management, however you define the middle management, by age, by status, rank, whatever they're doing in the company, are invariably the people who are better placed to move the company into the new generation, embracing the technology, than some of the people younger than me running business. So, you know, in Emirates we don't see that. We've got a group of people who are fully on message, understand what needs to be done. Change is always difficult, But in the end, these technologies that are being brought to market now are so disruptive. That's true, but they are so beneficial that to not embrace them will compromise the business of the company going forward. So, your management have got to be part of that deliverance, and in our company, that's what they are.
Okay. Sorry? Okay, Emirates is a client, apparently. Excellent. The clock's gone red, but let's have one more question. I'm told there's one at the back. There we go.
Hi.
Do you want to try it again? Yeah, it sounds like it's on.
Hello. My name is Andrea Ayala, Senior Manager of Environmental Sustainability at United Airlines. And with all of the challenges that airlines are facing between alternate propulsion and SAF, thank you. With all of the upcoming challenges in aviation from alternate propulsion and AI, SAF, do you see any challenges attracting and retaining talent in the coming decades to work as aviation professionals?
Okay, there's a few.
What was that?
Talent attraction is an issue. It's not only prone to aviation sector, I believe. Talent attraction is, after COVID, is a general issue which for many of the sectors. And to keep the talents, I mean, not to attract, but I think retention is an issue. The mobility increases. That's good for changing countries, having different experiences in different countries, but that also brings this retention issue. For the aviation sector, the talent specific to aviation is an issue. I mean, pilots is still an issue, will be an issue, probably in the short term. Technical staff is an issue. These are aviation specific talents, which we have to tackle delicately and be prepared and to train and to be ready, because capacity supply is there, we want to grow, so we should be investing more in these aviation-specific talents. The other one is a general issue. I think we're since many years we're tackling with.
I'm going to wrap things up. In a moment, I'm going to thank our fantastic panel. But when I do that, I want you to all stay in your seats, because the next person that's going to come up is probably the most important person you are going to hear from today. It is the festival's charity partner, Sandra Walter, and she represents an organization which does fantastic work around the world. When things go wrong, they are there. She represents Airlink. So in a moment, you are going to hear from her. Please stay in your seats and listen to what she has to say. It is very important. But before I do that, so that we can clear some space for her,